You are.
There
Perfect.
I am. Hi.
Yay.
Long time.
Long
Long
time.
time.
Long time. I have been looking forward to this for a very, very long time.
Yes,
Um, Thank you for making time for us today.
absolutely.
Um,
Thank you for having me.
yes.
I feel so
So,
important, special for being on Tatted Girl Dad's Live.
they're, they're nothing special. Um, so how are you today?
I
How is life?
I'm good. Today was a little hectic.
Yeah.
My middle one is a cheerleader for the junior football league, and we were late getting there because church ran over, and
Hmm.
then we didn't expect to be there till 3. So I was sweating like a pig in the hot sun, and we didn't think we'd be there for 3 hours almost. So
Right.
that was fun. That was fun.
Right. Right.
Yeah. How are you?
So I'm great. Yeah, I'm great. We went to church this morning, my daughter and my youngest daughter and I, and then we went out to lunch and just kind of hung out for a while. And she's over at her friend's house now. I'm gonna pick them up and take them to the beach for sunset tonight. Her and her friend, and just kind of
Oh, I'm
chill
jealous.
out.
You guys are
Yeah.
that close?
I'm on the southern tip of Lake Michigan, so
Oh,
it's about a 40-minute drive for us to get to the beach. And
oh, that's not too bad.
no, not at all. So I was
That was,
kind of churching you up as we were coming in, or as you were coming in, about how amazing you are in your faith. But I mean, we know that it can be trying at times. But you were one of the first people I followed on TikTok when I came onto this platform 2 years ago. Your content spoke to me at a point in time where I was really struggling, where I was really trying to figure it out.
yeah.
And if you could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became the virtuous overcomer on TikTok?
That's funny. So, uh, honestly, I was always I was believed, right? But I think that I I was one of those lukewarm Christians, that I see constantly now. Um, and not that, everybody's faith is different, and I respect each person in their walk with him. But for me, I I was my ex-husband. Um, we'll say he said he was a man of God, and worked at a youth facility that was a Christian-based youth facility. It was a delinquent home
Mm.
for troubled youth, and but so we were taught to believe, and we represented that. But looking back now on the walk that I have now, I'm like, we sucked at representing that. We
Yeah.
sucked.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until um, right before COVID hit, was when, or actually it was right as COVID hit, where he decided that he was bored, and found someone else on a website for affairs. It's called ashleymadison.com.
Mhm.
And I, within a matter of 4 weeks, COVID hit. I became a homeschool mom overnight to 3 kids, and my husband was leaving us. And I was so broken, so broken. And I remember friends along the way telling me, you're stronger than what you think you are. And I never quite understood what that meant until I was forced to dive into the only thing that I knew. I was at a point where I was ready to give up. I was literally ready to give up. I
Yeah.
got down. Uh, most women don't share their weight, but I'm 145 pounds. I That's average for me, right? I'm almost 5'10", so I'm tall. So people are like, "You're little." I'm like, actually, I'm really not. It's just spread out.
It's
Um,
all legs.
so I I got down to 116 pounds.
Yeah.
My friend was like, "You are sick. You look sick." And I was like, "Man." And I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was like my eyes were all sunk. I mean, I was just lost. I was hopeless. And that's when I found on YouTube Pastor Mike Jr., PMJ, that I have always streamed.
Yep.
And I'm back to streaming him live, side note, stream live every Wednesday morning at 9:30 Eastern.
Yes, you
Uh,
do.
so he literally just, I want to thank him, and I hope one day I get to meet him and drive to Birmingham and just go to his church, because it was him that really helped me see that you can be, as weird as this sounds, I can be my feisty, sassy self, but still be a woman of God.
Yep.
And I always had this, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. It's right at the tip of my tongue, but like this image of Christian women as, I've got to wear long skirts and no makeup, and I have to,
Subservient.
yeah, like, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. I
It's
don't
not
want to do
me.
that. And no
Yeah.
judgment, I not at all. I love everyone, and that's what this journey has taught me, is I love everyone, and it's because I have the joy of Jesus in my heart. And I want to be that light and to show people that you can be who you are, tatted girl dad, and still be a Jesus follower.
Yeah.
I think that there's this stigma with Christians, and this is what I'm trying really hard to break, is that you have to be perfect, and that, it's not like that. We all sin every day, and why am I going to judge somebody else's sins? Because I do it every day.
Right.
I nowhere near perfect, but in my heart, that's what God is judging, and I know that that's what matters. So
Yeah.
I started my journey with Christ, and became really close friends with a pastor after all this was happening, and he really showed me and helped me see my worth and my value through Christ. And I was like, dang, I kind of like this. Like, I feel fulfilled for the first
Mm-hmm.
time in
Mm-hmm.
ever, honestly. I didn't have a very easy childhood, and there was some childhood trauma that I had overcome on this journey for personal development that I took. And this was probably right after I had my oldest. And this was while I was still married to my ex. Um, I was just like, I have to be better for her. Now that I'm a mom, it's like
Right.
it's just switches. And I started, for the first time, I was 29 years old. No lie. The first time I ever read a book, ever. During high school, I did it all the time. I read the cliff notes for a book essay, and I just figured out and I pieced it together.
Yeah.
I never read a book front to back ever until I was 29 years old. And my first book ever that got me hooked on personal development, that journey, was called The Go-Giver by Bob Berg. Very short read. And I was like, oh, I kind of like this. I like this. I like how this makes me feel inside. So I had taken that journey, but I never, again, really walked with Christ.
Yeah.
And it was last January, praying, and I got on TikTok because it was kind of like my, escape when the kids were gone. It was silent, and it was like, deafening silence when they're not here. And that was, I would get on the app, and it would be like my place to go for laughs and just distractions
Yeah.
from life. And I got on one time. I remember it was last January. It was super cold outside. It was rainy and it was dark. And I got on TikTok and I saw some girl twerking, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, why? This is not what and I was reading a verse during my study that afternoon before I hopped on TikTok. And it was, oh my gosh, why did I just forget what verse it was? But essentially, God told me, go towards the sin, do something to go towards it. And that's when I was like, okay, but I don't even remember what my name was when I first started this, but I was like, okay, but I need to change my name. It's got to be catchy. And Virtuous Overcomer came.
Virtuous.
And I
Yep.
was like, okay, here we are. And then last January, and it's just been growing ever since then. And it's,
Yeah.
I feel like God has blessed this journey because of what I'm trying to do to bring people to him, and give hope and inspiration and light. So
Yeah, to be his vessel, right?
yeah, yep.
Do you struggle with spiritual warfare, being that more so that you're in the limelight or putting yourself out there more than per se if you were just in your family trying to be the spiritual overcomer?
I don't, I can't really say if I struggle more because I don't know what it was like without this because this is really this has really been a
Yeah,
part of me the whole time. But I can tell you the spiritual warfare is real. It is
real.
real. And it's really difficult at times. Partnered with the fact that, unfortunately, there's an individual or two in my life that have tried to take my kids from me, falsely accusing me of child abuse. I mean, all the things. Like, it was enough that he did what he did, but now it's like, can you just let me live my life? Like, I'm happy
Yeah,
now. Why are you still, And unfortunately, it's not a good situation in that aspect. So I feel like Satan's got his little minions, and
yep,
they live about really close to me.
yeah,
And
for sure,
it's
absolutely.
not fun at all.
I went through
Um,
that earlier this year when I was doing my morning affirmations, and like I really felt called to do it. I really felt like I was, I had committed to do it for a year because it's a 365-day affirmation book, and I was going to read
right?
365 of them. And then I felt like I had gotten to a really good place in life, and man, I left a door open that I shouldn't have left open, and I feel like the devil came in and just exploited it. And
Hmm.
really, I did not have the people around me that I needed to have around me to pray with me, pray over me, to support me when I was in that fire. It was a literal fire, just trying
Yeah,
to destroy me from the inside out. From a place where I felt I had gotten to where I could handle anything.
yeah.
Like I had survived. I did all the self help. I did all the counseling. I did all the letting go and healing, and he still found a way in.
Yeah. Well, and it's, I heard something, it might have been from PMJ, Pastor Mike, but he said, when if you're not being attacked, that means the devil likes what you're doing.
That's
Like,
yes,
man, no wonder I get attacked 20 times a day. Like, even my husband Travis, he was like, man, it was so much easier before, because he, had his life transformed as well. And he was like, it was so much easier when I ran with on the devil's playground. It was so much easier because you don't fight that warfare, because
correct.
he liked you then. He liked us then when we were
Yep,
doing all the dumb stuff, like not following, the word at all.
yep,
Um, and yeah, and he attacks your mind, and that's the rough part.
yep,
And that's that, from the inside out. It's like you get this doubt, and then you're like, oh my gosh. I mean, mom guilt is one thing, but add in the enemy's attacks, and you're like, dang, like what am I doing wrong? And you're like, no.
exactly.
And then, God will be like, you're fine. Just keep going. Just keep going,
Yep.
But it's freaking hard. It is not easy.
Yeah,
I,
and we're not even talking like being the traditional Bible thumping Christian that you would think of. It's just, I mean, we're everyday Christians. We understand that God doesn't make broken people. Society breaks us, and we have to find God to rebuild ourselves to where we're supposed to be. But the
man.
devil, I mean, the moment that you start fixing yourself, the devil does not want you to do that. And the moment you start helping other people fix themselves, he's like,
Oh no.
absolutely not.
No, we're gonna stop you right here. You stop. You're a terrible person. I mean, just all the things that he just attacks your mind to the
Yep,
core.
yep.
It's crazy.
And it's not
Yeah.
that hard. I mean, for me, you had mentioned not reading a book front to back. Well, I hadn't either until I had it out with God one day on January 11th, 2017, where I blamed him for everything, and I mother
Yeah.
effed him, and I hated him, and I just got, I had this conversation with him on my way to work that morning, and just, kind of gave him an ultimatum, but it was an ultimatum because I didn't care anymore. I was that
Yeah.
broken. I was so just disgruntled. And I
Mm-hmm.
told him, I just said, hey, you know what? I'm going to read the Bible front to back, something I had never done before in my life. And I said, if you can't prove yourself to me by the time I'm done, then I'm done with you. forever. I'm done.
F you.
And and it took me 4 months through my Bible app, just listening to it in the car, to completely transform me into the understanding that it's not about religion. It's not about going to church. It's not about who sees you at, at church events or volunteering. It's about your personal walk with him. It's about waking
Yep.
up every day and talking to him and opening up to him and really treating him like he is your father.
Right.
And it's just
Yeah.
it was such an amazing experience for me. And then then just the whole journey for the last 5 years and getting sober and just becoming this person that I never knew I could be. I felt so overcome with the need to help, to not to help, but to make other people understand that it's possible. Because I remember being in that dark place when I came home from work that night, when I wanted to end everything. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember feeling like I was the only person that was there, that nobody could help me, that I was so
Right.
alone. And what we do
So alone.
now is just simply share our stories
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the.
Well, and the biggest thing is for me, it's like, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is we were at a place where we were so broken. I
Mhm.
would like to help people understand that you don't have to get to that place. If like I would like to plant those seeds for people so they don't ever get to that place,
Yep.
to help them find Christ before they're broken.
Mhm.
Because let's be real, mental health is a pandemic, it's an epidemic, not pandemic, epidemic. Um, and it's 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 sad,
Yeah.
that get to a place where they are so broken that they make the decision to take their life,
Mhm.
and that's not at all what Christ wants for us. That's what the enemy wants. He
Yeah.
wants your soul, and he'll take it, and he'll get you to think that you're better off like that,
Yep.
and
Yeah. That's and how I don't know how you feel about this, but I kind of, because you mentioned planting the seed so people don't have to go all the way to the bottom. I kind of
mm-hmm.
feel like there's certain people, like maybe you and I, that had to endure that so we could teach the things that we need to teach. Like we were
Yes,
built for, like almost like we were built for this, really.
freaking A. Woo! I don't man. Like, but no, I mean it's very true, and that's what I love about your journey. Is that you are using those tests and those struggles and those challenges to help others. And I think a lot of times that people are scared to do that because, whether it be the fear of rejection, fear of failure, or fear of, just being judged. A lot of people are scared to share their faith because of the negative stigma that it does have. And that's what I'm trying to be the change,
Right.
and help people understand that you don't have to be some, you know, you can be just as you are, and just
Yep.
be that light for other people.
Yep.
And, I had somebody on my live last week and she said, do you do this or do you do Bible studies sometimes? And I'm like, as much as I would love to do Bible studies, I don't feel like God has anointed me to do that yet. So I'll leave that to the experts. I can read, but I don't know about all the Bible study stuff yet.
Yeah.
But maybe he'll get me to that point where he's like, do this. But right now, and I've had a lot of judgment. I've had a lot of negativity being on this journey. I don't know about you, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, good. I mean, not good,
I
but
mean, there's probably people screen recording this right now so they could find
use
something to say about me or use against me.
yeah. Um, but it's there's been some things there was one video that I did last year, one TikTok. I shouldn't say video because whatever, TikTok. And it was of the song, the Nicki Minaj, where she was rapping that verse or whatever. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever saw it. It kind of went a little viral for a hot second, but the judgment that I had from that was like, oh my gosh. And while I understand, I get it to a certain extent, but you're not supposed to understand my journey. You know, you might not appreciate my journey, but I can tell you that that song right there, me doing that, because it was a trend and it was from a gospel album. You know, people say that Nikki is a whatever. I don't care. What I care is her words, and that was what meant something to me.
Right.
And it was like, you might judge my journey, but do you know how many people came to my page and then were led to that page from that, even though it wasn't your typical, you know, sermon or something that I was
Yeah.
sharing on YouTube?
Yeah.
That brought so many people to my page that would have never seen my page.
Yeah.
That probably needs some inspiration and some motivation. And, you know, I don't always share, you know, I had another lady, oh gosh, this is probably about 6 months ago. It was some sound that was trending because I most of my stuff is, you know, faith-based, but there's some things that relate to my journey as well. And if I like it, I'm going to share it because guess what? It's my page. And I can,
Yeah.
you know, I don't curse, but I don't look at people that do curse and judge them because I just don't, you know. I have one friend, she was just at church with me this morning. She cusses like a sailor. And she even slipped a few weeks ago in church. She was like, ooh. Oh my gosh. But you know, it is what it is. And but this was the video that I did a few months ago. She goes, "You had me until the curse word came." And I use the captions app, which I don't know what app you use, but I use the
Same
captions
one.
app. And I have it to where it censors out.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't even hear it. And she still had something to say. And I'm like, listen, this relates with my journey. Like, I'm going to share it. If you don't like me, bye-bye.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Well, it's just, I mean, I think that's the biggest, I mean, that is the number one thing that Christians get wrong is the judgment of other people.
Oh, it's so terrible.
I mean, we're all sinners. If you believe in Jesus Christ and you believe that you're a sinner and you believe that he was the ultimate sacrifice for all of our sins, and you believe that, you know, if you identify a sin, you shouldn't repeat a sin, but we're all sinners.
Right.
And you shouldn't be judging people because ultimately they'll be judged at the end of their life by the person that needs to judge them, not us.
The only one that can.
The only thing that we can do is accept them and love them for exactly who they are and make them feel welcomed and hope that by God's grace, maybe they, you know, he will find them and do his amazing miracle work like he did on you and like he did on me. And, you know, we can just attest to that. That's all we can do. So, and going back to what you said about the pastor that kind of started this journey, for me, it was Pastor Michael Todd. 5 years ago, his Damaged Goods series, I happened to stumble across on YouTube. And I watched that whole series, and that was the catalyst for starting this whole thing. It's wild how that works. And
isn't that crazy?
It is. It's a beautiful thing, really.
It is.
If you let it be. But you're right. Like insecurities and regret and shame and guilt, all of those things that people did to us over the course of our lives, and it's not like we're me anyway. I don't hang my hat on the traumas and the abandonments and the, you know, my past life, but it is like the catalyst for me getting to here. Like I wouldn't change anything that happened to me at this point in my life because it ultimately wouldn't lead me here in this live right now. I wouldn't be able to have this conversation. So everything happens for a reason, but you really have to, you know, you can't use that as your excuse to just sit idle.
Right.
When you make that statement, you have to back it up with work and change and self-awareness and all the stuff that goes along with that.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, you know, they say he turns ashes to beauty. Like it's either, you know, I learned a long time ago that with all the things that happened in my childhood, that I played the victim card for many, many years. And I wanted people to feel sorry for what happened. And nobody even in my family felt bad for me. And it was like, and it was somebody in my family that did something pretty rough. And, you know, I'm really glad that, and I'll be completely transparent here, that all of the experimental drugs that I tried in high school didn't kill me. Because I was so rebellious and I was so broken as a child, and which caused me to make really wrong choices and, you know, really wrong choices in a husband, as I see now. Again, I wouldn't change any of that because it, I have 3 beautiful children from it. And through this whole experience, there's literally not one thing that I can say that I regret, because
No.
all of it has molded me into who I am now. And it's like, I'm so grateful. And I was never really grateful for that prior to my walk with Christ. He has forgiven me of, all the things that I've done, and helped me understand that I'm still worthy, I'm still valuable, I'm still enough. And he loves me despite all the stupid things that I've done.
Exactly.
All the stupid things I've
Yeah.
done. But yeah, I think I got to a point where it was like, I can either, and this is what I teach to my kids too, is I can either be a victim or I can be a victor. And I, another part of why I'm so grateful, and I'm sure you probably can relate to this. Another reason I'm so grateful for all of this is because everything that they're also being put through right now, not by my hands, but we'll just say that, I'm teaching them all of the things that I had to learn in my 20s.
Yeah.
And, emotional intelligence, like all these things that now I get to provide for them. And by the time they turn 18, 19, 20, they're going to be so much more ahead of the emotional intelligence curve because, I teach even my 7-year-old. Like, I'm like, no, that is manipulation. You don't act this way. If you want something, you don't try and manipulate your way to get it. Just speak to me and communicate, and it's like, I would have never known to teach those things, and it's different because it's my journey. And unfortunately, they're dealing with a lot of stuff in the outside demonic realm, which is
Right.
that they shouldn't necessarily, I wish that they weren't exposed to. But at the same time, I'm so grateful that they are, because I'm able to teach them all the things that I had to learn the hard way.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, and that's I literally just had that conversation with my daughters a few weeks ago. It's just like, you guys are going to be so much more well off
Woo.
mentally and emotionally than even me and my ex-wife, because we both, I didn't start there, we both have been going to therapy for 6 years for me, 5 for her,
Mm-hmm.
but like that wasn't until our late 30s.
Right.
Like we had no idea. We just kind of like pushed everything aside and forgot about it or didn't think about it and just existed in life. And now our kids are going to be so much more well off when it comes to the mental and emotional maturity at such a younger age. Like they're going to be, they'll be able to spot manipulation and toxicity and narcissistic people, and like it's just create boundaries at an early age.
That last part though.
you know,
The,
which
the,
is
the,
just, it's so
yeah,
crazy.
the toxic narcissistic people. Yes. Woo.
Yeah.
And I know that word's thrown around a lot, but I I think that there's probably more people that technically are narcissists, but they just don't want to admit that they might need help, so they're not actually being tested for it.
Right.
Because their manipulation game is real and it is strong, and they are good at what they do. Um,
Yes.
that's a whole nother topic
And
for.
trauma bonds, holy
Oh
moly.
gosh.
That was, I mean, I went through a trauma bond and it was worse than quitting drinking. It
Mm,
was, I mean, the detox from that was, wow.
yeah.
And yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
But that's the scary stuff. And the truth of the matter is, like, I still, even though I got to a really great place and then I had to go through the trauma bond or releasing from a trauma bond, I still never wavered in the thought that, like, these are all tools God is teaching me to use to help other people. Like, I
Yep.
have to experience this to be able to relate and have the exchange with people, so they connect with me and I can really help them through these things. That's
Yep.
my true belief when
Yeah.
it comes to
Absolutely.
this.
That you're on this journey. There is, and this is why, I always say there was a purpose in my pain. There's
Yes.
a purpose in all of it. And that trauma bond is real, and helping your child break from that is really hard. That's probably the hardest part of this now for me,
Right.
as far as my journey is concerned.
Right.
And yeah, that trauma bond is no joke. And I can see how people go back. I can see. Uh,
It's comfortable. It's normal.
mhm.
It's what you know, even though it's horrible. It's what you know.
It's
It's
all you've known. It's and it yeah, it's your safe place. Even though it's
Mhm.
not safe mentally or emotionally, it's your safe place.
Yep,
It's it's that dopamine, it's all of it. It's it's rough. So I
absolutely. But
absolutely.
but now, if I remember correctly, you just got married this year,
I did in
and you
June.
waited. You waited. Congratulations, by the way. You waited for a long time for him, right?
Yes. Yes.
Can you
He
share that journey as far as finding your husband and the love of your life?
Oh gosh. Um so obviously, as we can probably most of us have seen, TikTok has turned into like a dating app, and I'm not here for that, not here for that, not here for that. He found me. It was soon after I created one of my very first videos last January. And he's a football coach. So he studied for a little while and he was like, I just know that I'm going to go on her page and I'm going to see her twerking. Like the Christian, not who she is. Right. So he was like, I studied you like film. Like I studied to make sure that, and I tried to search for you in other places. Like, no, she can't be real. Like she can't really be this, she
Right.
can't be a good mom. She can't, there's no way. So he reached out to me quite a few times, and at the time, there was a few guys that I was talking to. None of them were local to me. Just kind of building relationships and just seeing where friendships might go. And so it took a few times. He reached out to me via the message whatever on here, which
Mhm.
it looked different than it does now. It's so weird how all these updates have happened,
Which
but
is a very hard endeavor, by the way, to get a hold of you through DMs. It's very even through text. It's hard to get a hold of
So let me tell you,
you.
I I never checked my requests because at the time they allowed requests, which I thought somebody is somebody said that they are bringing it back, message requests from people that don't follow you or you don't follow. I don't know, but at the
I
time
hope not.
there was a message request folder.
Right, I remember that.
I never went in there because the few times that I did, I can't tell you the amount of pictures that I got where I'm like, does your mom know you're sending this? Like, I wanted to be like, your mom would be ashamed if she,
Yeah.
like, I don't want to see that. Can you not see my content? I'm not here for a hookup. I'm not here to date. I'm not here to find anybody. I'm not here to date. And so it took him a few times, and then I finally reached back out, and he was the only one out of all of the DMs that I received. He was the only one that asked if I was spoken, and that struck me because I was like, wow. It was always compliment, whatever, same old stuff.
Pandering.
Are you single? Are you single? Are you single? And I'm like, oh my god. So that stuck out to me. So that was like, oh, that was very respectful. I that was refreshing compared to what I'm used to. So I appreciate that. And he made some lame joke, and I make fun of it to this day. I make fun of him for the joke. He said, "I fully expected for you to be take happily married and being riding to work on an elephant being fed mangoes and apricots on your way." I don't know, some stupid joke. And I laughed so hard. I was like, oh my gosh, this dude is so lame. Like I can't. I can't. So I never responded. And then a few months later, he was like, he would just randomly send messages like, I hope you have a great day. Never like, why aren't you talking to me? Why aren't you responding to me? He was always very respectful. And I was, like Jess said, I was praying specifically for exactly what I wanted.
Right.
And, it's, they don't, they say don't, nobody's ever going to check all the boxes. But for the most part, he's checked almost every single box. And as I got to know him, it was interesting because I was very transparent, and he lived in Colorado. That's his, he worked there and he lived there. And so he came to meet me, and of course stayed in a hotel because we were celibate. Uh, and he was never allowed in my home, nothing. Like I was like, no, because I know that my flesh is different than where I'm trying to go, and I just, you just don't even get the temptation. Nope, not
Right.
even doing it. And it finally, I had to tell him. I said, listen, I need you to understand that I'm getting to know 3 other guys right now. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah. So I, I might not always respond to you right away. And you're going to have to respect that if you are meant to be in my life, then you're going to have to be patient and understand that that's going to have to happen naturally, not
Right.
because you don't want me talking to other guys. You haven't shown me that you should be my only one yet. And it's funny now because he talks about it and he was like, little did you know. That was like, oh no, I'm going to make sure, so if anything, it made him kind of go after it even more. And so he just continued to respectfully prove himself, and, has never missed a morning devotion, has never missed a nightly prayer, nothing. And it's been a great journey. And so last year he proposed in the Grand Teton Mountains in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And yeah, and then he moved here shortly after, and we got married in June.
And you guys stayed celibate the whole time.
Whole time.
That is so amazing. You don't
Ooh,
see that very often. That
so
takes a lot of self. It's a lot of work.
mm,
Self control is the word I was looking for.
control, a lot of work, a lot of control, a lot of, all the things. And I've never been, I was married to my ex we were together for 12 years, 13 years, before he left. And I, I had serious relationships prior to that. So I hate to, say body count. My body count wasn't really high anyway, but it was still a lot of work. It was, it
Yeah,
was,
I could.
it was just tough to know that I know that this is exactly who I prayed for, and I still can't have it. Millie, quiet. She's in the crate. Millie, the new puppy. She's really upset right now because she can see.
But then to find a man, truthfully, that wasn't willing to brush up against that boundary or kind of pressure you, or I mean, that's you said he's a godly man in himself, right?
Yeah. So he really transformed his life. He was always, I don't want to say, his grandmother, his late grandmother, really started on the walk with Christ, but he will admit he wasn't obedient in any way, shape, or form. Um, you know, a football star and all the things, and yeah, it's he had lots of options, and he realized that just made him really empty. Um, and he got out of an 8-year relationship, and, was like struggling, and, got to the depths of the darkness and literally walked through the wilderness just like you and I did. And, we're like, he just reached out and cried to God, like, what do I do? And then, yeah. And I told him from the very beginning, I said, listen, if I'm celibate until I get married. So, because this wasn't something that I did the first time. And
Right.
um I was like, I'm not. So if this is what you're after, bye. Don't even
Yeah.
don't
Well, I
even
think just like any addiction, sexual immorality can really skew your mindset and your perspective, and really overlook red flags or
oh my
things that you really hold true, like values and end goals and things that are really important to you.
mm-hmm.
The devil will definitely use sexual immorality to infiltrate you and
Oh yeah.
make the wrong decision. So I mean, I give you mad props because it's yeah, that's something I haven't been able to do. But regardless, it's nothing short of a miracle to be able to do it at some point
It
in time.
it was a miracle. We'll say it was a miracle for us both. It's like,
Yeah.
how? And it's so different too. And the friend that I had that was a pastor who kind of helped me find that I spoke about at the very beginning. Um, he had his wife had recently passed away, and he had been with only her, and how he described what that was like, I was like, I want that. I want to know what that feels like to truly connect under his gift, you know? And
Right.
it was a totally different experience. It's a whole different ballgame. It's different. Yeah. Um,
So let me ask you this question for the single moms that are in this live now who are, in today's society, maybe they're not on the spiritual walk that you are, but just being a single mom in today's society in general, what kind of advice would you give them?
oh, that's tough.
Yeah.
It's hard because
Should have known coming into this live you were going to get asked some tough
I
questions.
like a freaking hot seat, man. Um, so that's a tough one to really answer because I don't know how to answer it without bringing in Christ.
Well, do it your way.
Because honestly, if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have. I don't know if I would have made it. Um, because holding on to the hope that I got from him was what honestly kept me from giving up. You know, there's a it's there were so many emotions that I was going through having to learn how to be a single mom. And I mean, there was times where I was donating blood plasma just to put food on my kids' table because I wasn't, despite my begging for help, for support for that person's
Mm-hmm.
children, I was met with, no, I'm going on vacations with my new girl and I'm having a good old time. And it's like, oh my gosh. Okay. But there were so many emotions that I went through during that period. And I found that in the back of, and I don't know if this is in every Bible or not, but in the back of the Bible, there's like feelings that you feel and it gives you scripture to help you. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a genius. I don't know who thought of this, but of course I never, I don't even know if I'd ever picked up a Bible before this whole walk. And um, I would read, I would find scripture based upon my emotions at that time, and I would read and I would get a calming sense of peace. And it's like, I knew at that moment when I did that, that I could go on another day. I could keep going. And it's crazy too, because I look back financially and I look back and I'm like, I don't know how I did it. I really don't. I mean, I live in a 3-story townhome, condo, whatever you want to call it. And the rent alone is $2,000. And I had a job that got ruined by that person. So I had no job. And I mean, like, I don't know how I did it. And I'm like, it was God. That was it. It was God. Because
Yep.
I don't know how. Like the blessings that have been bestowed upon me since this walk and since I've been doing this on TikTok, there's just like, I glory to him, because
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, there was like just checks of refunds that like I was getting in the mail, and I'm like, I didn't even know that I was owed this. Like, some type of um un something some kind of funds that were sitting somewhere for me one time, and I'm like, I didn't even know that this ever existed. It was like unclaimed funds or something like that. And somebody sent me a link to it, and I looked and I had some unclaimed funds of like a lot of money. And I'm like, nothing like, to write home
Yeah.
about, but enough where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be able to pay rent this month. Wow.
That's pretty amazing. It is because, and then my story to that too is I always struggled with the thought of tithing because when I was in the throes of addiction, I was, spending money like it was going out of style.
Mm,
It was ruthless. And, just barely making ends meet, like you said. And
yeah.
I chose to start, my tithing journey, I chose to start in little increments. So every twice a year, I'll pick a charity. And I really had like my own reservations about just giving to the church. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know why it just didn't sit right with me. So the way that I started it is twice a year I picked two charities, one every 6 months, and I kind of added it to this fund that I created. But I'm not going to say how much I put into each charity, but we'll just say $1. So I would put $2 in every
Right.
every year, and it would go to the charity. And then like I said, every 6 months I'd pick. And now it's up to like 10 different charities that I'm giving this set amount to.
Yeah.
And one thing that happened, even though I'm giving more money than I've ever given in my life away, is I've never needed for $1 since I started doing that.
It's
Ever. Never ever needed for, and it's just crazy how that works. Like I'm giving more away than if this is me 4 years ago, the amount of money I'm giving away would have been like, you're crazy.
mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I never needed for it since then.
No.
It's just
Oh,
ridiculous.
it is. And it's to somebody who doesn't tithe, you're like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. But then when it happens to you and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is insane. And because I was never really about that either. I was always like, why? Like, I feel like this is just, I had all the common misconceptions. Like, this is just going in the pastor's pockets. This is just, they're just using it to get wealthy, like all the things. And it's like, man, but then I see all of the ways that, there was so many people or so many youth that got to go to church camp
Yes.
here. And we are blessed we were able to pay the full price. And it was a good chunk, but not anything that's gonna make anybody broke who is surviving, I guess. But
Right.
still, to someone who doesn't plan on paying that, and they sent so many kids to church camp, they just said, hey, listen, whatever you can pay it. If not, we got the rest covered. We just want to get as many kids to church camp as possible.
Yep.
And I'm,
Yep.
okay, so this is what it's going to. And it's those things like that. And I'm like, man. And then I don't need for anything. We're not as well off as we will be, but we don't need for anything. Like my kids were being stingy over a freaking bag of white cheddar popcorn this morning. Like, we're in the car. First of all, I'm like, who told you to bring the white cheddar popcorn in the car? And my son was like, but I was hungry. And I'm like, whatever. You just ate breakfast, but okay, fine. And then they started bickering back and forth about this white cheddar popcorn. And I finally, and I'm not perfect, I raised my voice, and that mom voice had to come out. And I said, y'all never ever need for any food. Stop being stingy with it. You run out of the popcorn and you'll get more. Stop it. Like, are you serious? Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's crazy what happens when you really take that full walk.
Yeah. And if you can't, it's just about getting started. Like I said, I'm still not to where I need to be, but
Oh,
just getting started, like even if you can only give $1 a month to some, just start somewhere, and you will
yeah.
start to see you will absolutely start to see the reaps of the blessings come.
Yeah.
And not only that, but like, money is always a hot button topic when it comes to Christianity, right? And I can't think of the parable of the farmer who left. He left his three workers the same amount of money. What is that called? And one of them 10 times it, one of them 5 times it, and one of them buried it just to keep it safe. And it was, I mean, it's okay to have money. It's okay to be wealthy. It's what you do with it
Mm.
is what is what matters here. If you're giving back to if you're making $1,000,000 and you're giving $900,000 away, you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing with your
Right.
wealth.
Right.
However you build it. I mean, you can't judge people for what they're doing because you don't know what they're doing.
Right.
They could be billionaires, but they could be giving billions back to the church, to the country, to whatever they're doing. But it's just important. I mean, it's important to tithe as little as you have to, or not as little as you have to, as whatever you can, and I promise you it will help.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
talents, yeah, the talents.
makes a tremendous difference.
Yeah,
And it's pretty cool watching the kids learn that too, you know, um, because I of course give them the cash to put in the thing at the church,
right.
and it's only a few dollars because we tithe through the app and
Yeah,
whatever.
right. Right.
It's teaching them, like I remember the first time they were like, "We're giving the money," and I'm like, "Yeah." And so that was a whole teaching lesson, and it was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I see what you're doing up there. Okay, I got you.
Real quick, if you guys have questions, feel free to ask. I got about 15 more minutes, and then I got to take off. But I have another question. I do have 5 questions that actually they gave us at church today. So if any of you guys, before I get off, grab a pen and paper, grab whatever your notes on your phone, and I will ask you these 5 questions that you can ponder on for the rest of the week. But
Yes, JD Squirrel.
do you think you should tithe when you struggle paying your bills?
And that's the
he,
hardest part, and that's where
yeah,
the really comes in, because the enemy will tell you, "Oh no, you're broke. Like you got to take every penny that you possibly can. Don't give that to anybody else, because what if you don't pay your bills?" And that's where that faith truly comes in,
yeah,
and it took me a while. Trust me, I am not perfect, because
yeah.
when I would have to donate blood plasma to put groceries on the table for my kids to eat, it was like, I don't know. I have to pay my electric this month, and I have to feed my children, all the things. And I was stubborn for a while. I was stubborn. And I was like, no. It was like I would hear God say, "Don't forget to tithe." And I'm like, do you see my bank account? I can't do that right now. Don't forget to tithe. And it was like, what did I tell you? And it's funny because Travis and I will talk, and it's now we have like this Christ voice, right? And when we know that we're doing something that he wouldn't approve of, he'll say, "Now, son, you probably," and I'm like, so then I'll go, "Now, daughter, this is not what you should be doing." Okay, I got it. Like, it's really, we imagine that's how his voice is, right? Like, "Now, son, I've told you." And yeah, so, but I was stubborn for a long time about it. And then finally, when I started just having that faith and letting go and letting God, it was like, okay, now, all right, I got it. I'm listening.
Well, it's hard because society just fills us with insecurities and shame and guilt and regret and all this stuff that we harbor inside. And when you say let go and let God, it's probably one of the most difficult things that I ever had to do, but also one of the most peaceful places I've ever got
Oh,
to.
it's crazy.
It's
You would not
ridiculous.
think, right? And it's
Yes.
so hard to explain that sense of peace and that sense of fulfillment. Millie, quiet. It's so hard to explain that until you've been there. It's
Yes.
almost like trying to describe to someone what being a dad is like who hasn't been a dad yet.
Yeah.
You can't explain it until it happens.
Yep. It's
It's
almost like
real.
nothing. Very rarely can anything knock me off my center. Like nothing can be thrown at me. No names, no ridicule, no shame, no guilt, no criticism, nothing.
No.
It just doesn't. But it's not that I don't give a f. It's not that I don't care. It's
Right.
just that it doesn't mean anything to me in the grander, bigger picture of my relationship with God. Eyes
Yeah.
to the sky. If someone's attacking me, it's literally I turn to him as if he were my father standing next to me and ask him for guidance and help and what should I do. And
Yep.
every morning I wake up, the first person I talk to is him,
Yeah.
as if he's like sitting right next to me. you
Right.
know it's,
Just slept with you in bed or something. As weird
yes,
as.
exactly.
But yeah, no. I absolutely. There was something I was just gonna say when you said that, and now it just totally exited my mom brain. I tell everybody, I don't see like just regular squirrels. I see like sparkly colored magenta
Hula hooping.
squirrels. They're a level of attraction. Uh, yeah, I lost it. I'm sure it'll come
um
back when I'm eating dinner tonight. I'll be like,
yeah.
oh.
Oh, that's what I wanted to say. Get a random text from you tonight. This is what I wanted to say. Yeah, what is this? JDS Squirrel. I've had church tell me I need to be self-reliant. So his previous comment was that he went to church for help. He did tithe, and he went to church for help, and they didn't help him, or they wouldn't help him. They said he needs to be self-reliant. They don't acknowledge that I ask when I'm desperate. Yeah, I know. I know my church has certain parameters that they like.
Yeah.
They have their own group to where the person would meet. You have to meet certain criteria. So I don't know what to say. If I mean, you could always find a new church. That's all I would say there. If they're that stingy,
Yeah,
or
that kind of makes me feel a little eh. But again,
yeah,
we don't know the situation. So,
right.
there's, like Brian, there's different parameters and you just never really know. But I would also remind you that just because the church won't do it doesn't mean God can't.
Yes.
Because, let's be real. There's some icky people out there. There's icky normal people. There's icky, I mean, I guess normal probably wasn't the right word, but there's icky people that are non-Christians and there's icky people that are Christians,
Yep.
and we have to be able to discern who is genuine and who is just there for whatever other reason they may have. So yeah, my recommendation would also be to find a different church.
Yeah, and it's funny you use the word discern because I was just listening to Michael Todd this morning as I was folding clothes, and he was talking about being um, to be able to discern between to be spiritually, what is the word, to be able to identify, discern spiritually negative people or something, but not using it as judgment, not
Yeah.
not using your discernment as a way to criticize people, but as a way to help the people who like for example, if I saw my friend's husband ridiculing her, criticizing her, that's not for me to judge him. It's for me to go to her and say, "Hey, I see this going on," as an example. Like that's the discernment, that the spiritual discernment that I'm talking about. Like it's not to be able to judge people. It's not to be able to ridicule or put down or put yourself above someone else. It's to help people see what they don't see,
Yeah.
through God's grace and God's guidance.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm glad you used that word because I was thinking about talking to you about that this morning and I forgot.
Yeah, discernment is so real. It
Mm-hmm.
is. And it's something that when you are able to discern, I don't want to say appropriately, but
Spiritually,
I guess, yeah. Yeah, I guess that would be it because, I could absolutely say that I had discernment in my younger 20s before I followed Christ. I definitely did not. I thought I knew it all, but I didn't. uh, and I think that through this journey, I see things way more clearly than I ever did before. Um, and it's like I get signs and I get, not like, supernatural signs, but I get visions of things. And the more I pray and the more I'm with him and I talk to him, even when he pisses me off, even when he does things, and I'll literally, like, things that used to make me so mad. Like, I used to have terrible road rage. Terrible. And I'm a speed racer. I am fast lane. I won't tell you how fast I go, but I like to get to where I'm going. And um I I used to have road rage really bad, and people would be like in front of me slow. And I'm like, what are you doing in my lane? Like, do you not see that I'm going 10 miles faster than you? And so the stuff like that used to bother me. But now, and I don't know how I got on this topic when we were talking about discernment, but anyway, now it's like, now that I have Jesus in my heart, it's like I laugh at that kind of stuff because it's always when I'm in a hurry. And I'll be like, okay, that's what we're doing today. That's what we're doing today, God. Okay. All right. I got
yeah,
it. I hear you. I'm going to slow down. This
yep,
is your to woosah and just
exactly.
and
Well, I
I'm like,
think that's a great point, and I'll transfer back. I'll you know jump back to what we said earlier, was there's nothing that I would change, because everything that happened, even good, bad, or indifferent, he was teaching me something. And he still does that in the moment. Even when I could be a stubborn child sometimes when it comes to the things that he's not doing for me,
Right.
but there's a reason in the end of why he didn't let it happen. He didn't want it to happen. Like, there's so many things that I wish in the moment, and I prayed for on my hands and knees, and just like
So,
literally begged for him to help. And hindsight, you see why he didn't want it to happen.
yep.
Or it's not meant to be right now. Like, there's still work to do in the process of that miracle that he's working.
Yep.
Like, you
Got
just have
time.
no control over it.
Yeah. And well, and everything that happens is either a blessing or a lesson.
Yes.
And it's like, as long as if you view it in that way, it really has allowed me to not become so flustered. I mean, I get like overwhelmed, mom stressed sometimes, and it's funny because Travis has had to learn that he calls me Judy Hopps from Zootopia, uh, because I'm literally like, he'll try and tell a story, and he calls me Judy Hopps, and I call him the sloth from Zootopia, like the
Yeah.
like at work he's like on it, but he gets home and he'll try and tell a story, and he
It's
laughed so hard at me last week because he was like slow in starting the story, and I'm like, and he was like,
let's
all
go.
right.
Come on.
And I'm like, oh dang, you just checked me. Okay, babe, I'm here. Like, but I got stuff I got to do. I got to go, and I got kids, whatever. So it's yeah. I don't know why I just told that, but I was gonna say he's had to learn that even when I'm bouncing around and I seem like I'm stressed, I'm not. I'm just trying to get stuff done.
Right.
I'm just like all the time on 100 miles an hour. And now that he's adjusted to, living with me and all these things, he's like, now I see why you're in bed at 9 o'clock. And I'm like, absolutely. I'm
I'm
pretty tired.
exhausted.
I am tired. I'm like nonstop all day. And then I also said to him today, I said, it's interesting because, and I don't know if it's all men, and I'm sure some women are like this too, and I'm sure some men probably aren't like this. And I said, you think 5 minutes ahead into the future. I'm already thinking about, do I have enough lunch for the kids on Tuesday? What needs to be done on Tuesday? And he was like, I'm so
Yeah.
glad we don't think like that. He said, because we'd probably be dead.
Yeah. I literally think in the moment, and it used to drive people crazy in my life. I literally,
That is
like, I am the epitome of just like chilled out, relaxed, like in the moment. Like,
we definitely
yeah,
compliment
I got
him.
to force myself to meal prep because I know it's something healthy that I need to do, but otherwise I'll just wing it like
Yep.
all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's pretty much, he's definitely an in the moment thinker. You guys would probably get along really well.
probably.
He's like, I'll be like, babe, and he's like, I mean, whatever. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm bouncing around. He's like, okay, Judy, you got it. Let me know if you need my help, Judy. And I'm like, okay, I will. I got this. I got it.
Like, that's
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Well, we wrap this up. Do me a favor and just tell everybody how they can survive, how they, in their darkest days, what do they need to do? What do they need to do to make it through?
It's easy to say have faith. Because, that's what everybody says. So I would say find PMJ. Because literally, but aside from that, okay, the best piece of advice is every time you think of something negative and the enemy is attacking your brain, and I made a video about this, I think a year ago or something, but it fits in all aspects. Anytime there is a negative thought that enters your mind, and one of my mentors many years ago told me this, say cancel, and replace it with a positive. Because I think that, aside from my first piece of advice would be open up your Bible, find the emotion that you're feeling and find the scripture that can reference that, even if you don't even know how to read it. The first Bible I ever had was a King James, and I'm like, Arthur Ogdi, what?
Yeah.
I have
No.
no idea what's happening.
No.
It doesn't matter, because God is seeing you connect with him, or at least attempting, and he recognizes those efforts, and you'll learn as you go. But the cancel, you know, through my personal development journey that I had many years ago before walking with Christ, I literally had to rewire my brain cell
Yep.
patterns, because I was so negative. I was so negative. And like looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, how did anybody want to be around me? Oh, I know, because I was a partier and I could drink and I could party hard. But it wasn't any there was no genuine relationships there. It
Right.
was what for other people, you know? But yeah, rewiring my brain cell patterns was probably the hardest journey, aside from the trauma bond. That was probably the hardest journey that I took, because it took a long time to stop the negative self-talk, because that's really just the enemy in your mind, making you think that you're not worthy, you're not good enough, nobody loves you. But there's lots of people that love you. You just have to find your people that will cover you in prayer, and that will be there for you, and that will welcome you and be the light like Christ is.
Yeah. Find your tribe.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add to that is love yourself more.
Yes.
Be selfish for you. You know, this society doesn't owe you anything. Nobody's going to come save you. Nobody's going to be your knight in shining armor.
Nope.
If you turn to God and you trust him and you study him and you give everything to him, it will change. It will. I promise you it will.
Oh,
but you just have to have the self-awareness to know that you're not perfect at everything, that you're good at some things, you're bad at others, and you're mediocre at the rest. And that's okay. Right. There's nothing wrong with being the beautiful person that God created you to be. Just because society is telling you that you're not doesn't mean that you are.
Nope.
So trust the process and work at it. Just work on you for the rest of your life. Be selfish for you. And like you said, find a tribe of people who are willing to pray over you, pray for you, and when you are going through your darkest days, they're gonna lift you up. And when you're winning, they're gonna cheer you on.
Well, and you know, it's about having that servant heart too. You know, things transformed when I started wanting to help other people, not because I wanted something in return, but because I really wanted to help. That servant heart is huge. Right. Because I believe you can get everything. Zig Ziglar, I don't know if you know who that is, but motivational, love him. One of his quotes, and has been my favorite for as long as I can remember, is you can get everything you want in life if you can help enough other people get what they want.
Yes. Giving back, gratitude, servitude,
and
absolutely.
It's just giving to people and being there for them. And even though I suck at responding to messages and I suck at responding to text messages, I do it. I do. I just, you know, but I've also had to accept that if people can't love me because I've had some people that are like, I have one person who, we met through TikTok, and one time she called me a snob because I hadn't responded to her. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really need that energy. So if you think I'm a snob because I'm a busy mom of 3, like, you got to love me and meet me where I am. And that relationship just kind of fell off. Like, I don't need that. I don't need that. Like, what is happening? And I have friends that laugh at me when, like, you know, like you did, like, you suck. And I do. I'm not.
I was talking to Jess that morning that you texted me, and I was like, yeah, I'm trying to get a hold of Melissa, but she never answers my DMs, or you'll answer like a month later, like completely out of the blue. And she's like, do you want me to text her? I'm like, yeah, would you please text her and tell her I want to get a hold of her? And she's like, now let me warn you, like, if she texts you, you might not hear from her for another day, but she'll get back to you.
But what was funny is that it triggered me to be like, oh, shoot, because I kept telling you, I'm going to shoot you a message. I'm going to shoot you a message with my number. And so she sent that to me. I just was on the bus, and I think I just sat down, and I don't know what I was doing, but I was like, oh, okay, thanks.
Squirrel.
I don't even know if I responded to her and said thank you, but I literally clicked on your contact, and then I just sent you a message because I'm like, I know if I don't. that I probably will forget, and I'll think that I did it in my head, or I'll tell myself I'll come back to it, and
Yeah.
then life happens, you know?
Yeah.
So
So
thank
I
you guys.
do have,
I'll
real
do it
quick,
all.
I have 5 questions for you guys if you guys want to write them down. This comes from Kings 12, 1 through 2. That's what we studied in church today, but these questions come from that. First question is, what is on your heart right now, occupying your mind's space? Like I said, you can answer these whenever you want. You don't have to do it now. We won't answer them now. The second question is, are you willing to let go and leave it in the most capable hands?
Oh, that's a big one.
Third question is, what is something new you've learned about your creator or a truth you've encountered?
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Fourth one is, which promise of God will you cling to in the next season? And the last one is, what is causing your heart to overflow with gratitude because of God alone?
Those are deep.
Those are good.
Oh, that's like some thought-provoking stuff right
But
there.
that all came from Kings 12. So if you want to read it, and
Yeah.
maybe that'll help you answer your questions. So,
Hmm.
Melissa, I appreciate your time so very much.
Thank you. I
I
appreciate.
I hope we can do this again sometime, and I will
Yes.
text you. I'll text you weeks ahead of time and wait for a response.
Oh, shit. Oh, but you know what? It's like I'm so glad that, like Jess said, we love you for it, not in spite of it or whatever. Um, it's like you found your people when quiet, when they don't hate on you for
Yeah.
because I can't change that, and I can't allow the stress of feeling like I have to change that part of me.
Yeah.
Quiet. Sorry, mom voice. Um, in order to be loved,
Yep.
and
And I
it's
think that's a great. That's this right here is exactly what we're talking about. You should not feel shame and guilt from the people that are surrounding you. They
mm-hmm,
may. I mean, you should surround yourself with people who are willing to tell you when you are screwing up, but from
right,
a place of love. But they should not be shaming you or guilting you or holding any sort of resentments because of the way you are. They should be
right,
helping you. And especially when you win, that's a great indicator if you have the right people around you. If you're winning and you're doing great in life, if they're cheering you on, perfect people to have around you. If they're,
yep,
resentful and, insecure about what you're doing and not
icky.
churching you up,
No,
find new people.
don't surround yourself with Trot waffles.
So I got to repeat 2 questions real quick. The first question was, what is on your heart right now occupying your mind's space? And number 4 is, which promise of God will you cling to in this next season of life? So, thank
Love them.
you.
Yes,
I
thank you.
appreciate you so much. We'll talk again soon.
Right back
Have an
at you.
amazing, amazing week ahead.
Yes, you too.
All right. Have a good night.
All right.
Everybody
Bye.
else, we'll see you too. Bye.
Bye, guys.